It is the end of August 2018. I gotta say, it's not been a good gardening year. I'm gonna take you through the garden today, show you what I did right, what went well, but most importantly, what I did wrong, what mistakes I made, how you can prevent from doing the same thing. Hey guys, welcome back to another Slightly Rednecked video. Again, my name's Chris. If you're not familiar with this channel, I help you to produce your own meat, eggs, and vegetables from your backyard, your balcony, your deck, your garage, or heck, even a spare room in your house, if that's where you want to do it. All right, so of course we're in the garden today. Again, not been the best gardening year. And I gotta say, first of all, I really apologize, I failed. I set out at the beginning of the year, started a series from seed to harvest, meant to do a lot more instructional videos, but just got tied up, got busy. The reception really wasn't that great. I mean, I didn't get that many views on them. So I figured it wasn't something you guys wanted to watch. But if it was those, for those of you that were watching that series, I'm sorry, I failed. I should have followed that all the way through, but I'm gonna try to kind of get most of it wrapped up here. Planning a fall garden, so I'll keep up with the some of the tips and tricks on those videos. Anyway, let me get to it. All right, so you can see off in the background here, we're gonna get to here in just a minute. I've got my cantaloupe, my cucumber, tomato plants right over here on the side. We'll walk through each one of those things, but let me show you something over here. This is something that's actually done okay. All right, so what we're looking at here is my watermelon. Just stuck a vine in the ground and walked away is basically what I did. And it did pretty decent. I mean, I've got 4 melons on it. This one here, I don't know if that's gonna be any good or not. It's pretty tiny. These aren't bad. I mean, they're not huge watermelon, but they're decent. I don't even like watermelon, but my wife likes watermelon, so that's what I'm growing it for. Nothing I can say I really did wrong here. It's starting to get some rust on it. That's probably a fungus because we had just a big rainstorm that came, but it's just about done anyway, so not a big worry, not a big concern. All right, so the rest of the garden here, not that great. This is my summer squash, and the summer squash did okay. It produced some summer squash. There's a couple still on there I need to pick off, but you can see it's pretty much done now. It's just given up and it's all wilting and laying down. There's still a few flowers, but it did okay. Tomato plants right here. These tomato plants, these did pretty well. They actually, I mean, it's got tomatoes on it right now. These are a new variety I've never grown before. Let me find another one that's a little bit better. Here's one. Never grown these before. These are called black versanage or versanage, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And they're just kind of a variegated green, red tomato, a little bigger than a cherry tomato, but about that size. These were free seeds that came from Baker Creek, so I figured I'd go ahead and try to grow them. Don't like them at all. The plants did great, very prolific, produced like crazy, but to me they just don't taste good. And they taste underripe, and if you let them get all the way ripe, they get real mealy. And they're real tough skin. I don't like them, not gonna grow them again. Okay, the other tomato I grew here, I know you're a little ways away from it, but you can tell the plant's kind of starting to die now, but it did okay. This was a Granny Cantrell, I think is the way it's called, beefsteak tomato, and it did pretty decent. I mean, it's produced quite a few tomatoes. Squirrels got a couple of them, but we got several of them to eat ourselves. Not my favorite tomato. It wasn't bad, it was good. I mean, it is an heirloom tomato and it was a very rich flavored tomato. But I think I like the Mortgage Lifter Reds that I've been growing better. So I'm gonna go back to those next year. Oh, real quick. The okra all through here. I grew there it is, you can see it on there, red okra. That stuff's too big too, it got out of hand. But none of these plants got very big. And I don't know if that kind of okra is not supposed to get very big, but I just did not have good luck with okra this year. Could not get it to sprout, couldn't get it to come up. You can see the bed is mostly empty. There's hardly anything in it. I got a couple more growing right over here, but I had a very hard time getting those going. All right, these were cantaloupe right here. They're done. They've already produced all they're gonna produce and they're shriveling up and dying right now, but that's okay. I'm gonna pull them out. These did pretty well. I got 7 or 8 cantaloupe off this, all pretty small, just slightly bigger than a softball. Well, I guess considerably bigger than a softball, but not that big of melons, but that's okay. I don't need that much cantaloupe at one time. They were very good, very tasty. I can't remember, this was a musk melon, but I don't remember the specific gene or whatever you call it. I don't remember the specific type. I'll have to look that up, try to put a link below. Okay, so the cucumbers over here, you guys are a little ways away, but there's not much to see but dead vine anyway. These did great, produced a lot of cucumber. I didn't do a good job of staying on top of getting it all picked, so they kind of shut down on me a little bit early, but they performed really, really well, did a great job. They're pretty much done now too. All right, these are Amish paste tomatoes. You can see I've still got a lot of tomatoes on the vine. These are my favorite paste tomato. They just do a great job every year for me. This year was no exception. They did well. They didn't do as well as normal, but they did better than any of my other tomatoes. Produced lots of tomatoes these are good for canning. They're not real good for just slicing up and putting on a sandwich. You really want a big beef steak for that. But these are good canning tomatoes, and I've got enough here that I can get a couple more jars of tomatoes canned up before it's all done. Okay, this is all green bean. These did pretty well. I mean, really, actually very well. The problem I have with these is when I planted them, they were supposed to be bush beans, but they ended up being pole beans. Luckily, I had, this little hoop house structure. I don't even know if you can see it in here, set up already. So they just climbed that, but they filled in. We got a lot of beans off this. Green beans, super easy to grow though. Starting to get some rust problems down here at the end. Let me turn you and show you. Okay, you can probably see right down there, that's some green bean rust coming in on the leaves. It's a fungus, probably because we got just a ton of rain over a couple of days and the temperature dropped a little bit. It's just started to hit them, but it's no big deal. I mean, you could get fungicides and things and spray them, but right now the beans are pretty much done. I'm going to be picking all the beans off of them anyway, and it's not on the beans, it's just on the leaves, so it's really not that big a deal. All right, these are the pepper plants. Pepper plants have done very well. I'm just loaded with jalapenos. Gonna have a barbecue next weekend. Habaneros have done fantastic. I'm just now starting to get ripe habaneros though. They just took a while to get there, but they're doing great. Here's one right here, fresh habanero. I don't know if you can see that on film or not. And cayennes over here, right there on camera, if you can see that. Well, I'm sorry, actually it's a little further. But the cayennes did pretty well too. Produced a lot of peppers. This stuff just did great. Okay, this is kind of interesting. This bed was my garlic. It's already all come out of the ground, so the bed's pretty much empty now. But I had this plant just voluntarily come up, and I thought, man, that looks like a cucumber or a cantaloupe or something. Well, sure enough, it's a cantaloupe. I got one melon left on the vine. Not a great big melon. I don't know if you can see that in film or not, but it's gonna be a good cantaloupe. I had a great big one on here. I mean, it was a nice big melon, and I think a groundhog got in here. Because the day it was, it looked like it was going to be ripe, ready to go the next day. And the next day I come out and that cantaloupe's half eaten and it's out there in the back lot. So pretty sure a groundhog got a hold of that one and pulled it off the vine and took it with him. So anyway, but these, garlic did great. Garlic always does great. It's super easy. Over here is zucchini. It did all right, not great, but all right. And it's done. It's just given up. You can see it's falling apart. It's just, it's done. But it didn't do that great this year. It did okay. And then over here, let me show you one more thing. Over here, okay, this is spinach right here. This was just at the beginning of the year, had a spinach crop. It did well. I got several cuttings off of it and it kept growing, and it got away from me and started to bolt, and I just left it here. I didn't have anything else to put in this bed, so I just left it in here to go ahead and go to seed, do whatever. And it kept the weed presence down in here quite a bit. Now it's died back and the weeds are starting to come back. So let's talk about what didn't go well. First of all, like I said, everything for the most part did okay, but not great. And I didn't get nearly as much of a harvest as I normally do. The big mistake I made this year was I didn't water. I didn't water at all. And with the sheet mulching that I do, big thick layer of wood chips on top, usually I don't have to water, but we've been in severe drought status for since July. So I really probably should have done some watering. This type of garden bed is very drought tolerant, but that doesn't mean it's 100% drought resistance. We haven't had any rain in so long. The last couple of days we've gotten like a month's worth of rain. It's been great. But before that, it was incredibly dry all summer long, and I didn't do any watering. I just let the plants go, and they struggled. The other big thing is the Bermuda grass finally found its way into the garden. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is mostly Bermuda grass. I put a big thick layer of wood chips on, and it's done a good job the past several years, 4 or 5 years, at keeping all the weeds out for the most part. I have two problems. I have the Bermuda grass, and I also have this vine, some kind of milkweed vine or something that just grows through everything. It's impossible to stop this stuff, but we keep it in check. I'd go through with the flame weeder at the end of the year and be done. This year, the Bermuda grass worked its way in, and it started at the edges and finally just got into the middle of the garden. So I've got a plan for how to take care of that. I've been mulching. You might be able to see on the garden. I don't know if you can see it on here or not. I've been mulching with grass clippings that when I mow the yard, I collect the grass clippings, come and dump them on here. And it's pretty good where I've got the grass clippings. It's keeping it under control, but I don't have enough grass clippings to go over the whole garden, so can't do that. But I do have a plan. So what I'm gonna do to take care of the weeds in the garden, because they got so bad this year, is I was at Tractor Supply the other day, and they had 100-foot by 3-foot wide landscape fabric, and they had it marked down for clearance because it's the end of the season for $1.89. So I bought all of them. There was like 7 or 8 of them. It was like under $10, and I think it's going to be enough to cover this whole garden bed with landscape fabric. So I'm going to cover the whole thing and leave it completely tarped, so to speak, until I may even leave it on there for next growing season. I don't know yet. We'll see. Before I do that though, I've got to clear out all these beds. I'm going to go through with the flame torch and just burn everything down, all the vine, kill it all. And then I'm going to lay that landscape fabric. Oh, I'm going to go over the beds, throw some rabbit manure on them. Then I'm going to lay that landscape fabric over the top of the whole garden and just let it sit. And when it comes time to plant into it, my tomatoes and things, I'll probably just cut a hole in the landscape fabric and plant. The only thing that I wouldn't be able to do that way would be things that go from seed and are densely seeded, like lettuce, spinach, those kinds of things. You don't really, you can transplant those out, but those mostly I need to open up some ground for those. So I'll see how I handle that when it comes time. And also the fall garden, I'm gonna have some things going in. So, all right, so the big mistake though, really, all my issues, the reason everything's dead already now is because I didn't water anything really the whole season, just let it go. So, usually I can get away with it, but not in a severe drought. Learned a lesson, I need to monitor my water just a little bit closer. I saw signs of it, which the plants start to droop a little bit, and that shows that they need water. Saw signs of it, but I ignored them, just let it go. And I can't really say it's a mistake so much as I knew what was gonna happen, and it just was, it refused to face the inevitable, and got a little bit lazy with the garden. So my mistake this year. Got some food, but not a great amount. Let me show you what's gone well though, what really has worked well. All right, so this is asparagus. This is 2-year-old asparagus. And on the other side, I've got 1-year-old asparagus. That stuff's only about that tall. It's hard to see in camera. But this stuff's done great. I did not harvest it this year. I'll start harvesting it next year. But no water or anything on this, and it's done just fantastic. Had some nice shoots that came up. Just no problem. Strawberries as well have done pretty well. Let me turn the camera and you'll see them. All right, these are the strawberries, and again, they've done pretty well as well. Just resisted the drought, no problem. Some of the ones that were runners out to the sides, we're trying to fill it in that way. Didn't really make it, but the rest of them doing pretty good. I've still got berries coming on. Just can't keep everything else from eating the berries first. That's the only problem, but they're doing pretty good. They're filling in, sending out these little runners. And look, that one's already planted, already rooted in. So there'll be at least 2, maybe 3 more strawberry plants here next season. They've done great. All right, these are the peppers, mostly pepper plants that I've got in containers up on the deck. I like to grow some peppers in containers because they do so well. And secondly, you can bring them in at the end of the season, and these will keep producing peppers, or the peppers on them anyway will ripen over time in the house. If you can keep it alive, put enough light on it to keep it alive, then it'll stay alive for the second year, and you can just bring it out and you've got a pepper plant ready to start producing peppers again. You don't have to grow it all the way from seed to get to that level, if that makes sense. So I do like to grow some peppers in pots up here on the deck. And every one of them's done fantastic. These are all self-watering containers. The more I use them, the more I think, man, this is the way to go if you're gonna do any kind of container gardening. These things are fantastic. I'll put a link up here where you can go watch a video on how I made these containers here. These I bought on clearance. This one here is interesting. I planted radish seed and onion seed in here. Could not get it to come up. It just never germinated, but something did. It was a volunteer, and it's another volunteer cantaloupe. I did not plant cantaloupe seed in here. It just happened. But I mean, it's got 1 cantaloupe on it right now, and it's just huge. I don't know if you can see this. I don't want to mess with it because it's almost ripe, and I'll be able to pull it off the vine here pretty quick. But it's a big cantaloupe. It actually produced another cantaloupe, but it was kind of malformed, had a split, I think because it was hanging over the side, leaning up against one of these boards. But it was shaped kind of weird, had a big concave section, and something got in there, and it started to rot from there. It ended up opening up. It was no good. I took it off and threw it away. It's still got a couple of flowers down here, but it's too late in the year. It's not going to produce any more this year. So you can grow cantaloupe in a container. Yeah, I mean, it did decent, but that's a lot of work and a lot of space devoted to one melon, you know, or 2 melons really is all it produced. But the plant itself's done great. It's starting to die off now because, well, it's the end of the season. But peppers, man, peppers are just loaded with peppers. I know you can't see them because they're all green and yellow, because there's a whole bunch of ripe, jalapenos and what's that, cayenne over here on the side, but the rest of them, waiting on them to ripen up the rest of the way. But they're just producing like crazy. They're doing great. This is another area that's done very, very well. This is my herb garden. So in here I've got, let's see, this is lavender right here, green basil over there, or excuse me, purple basil over there, green basil over here. That's rosemary, this is thyme, that's oregano. These are perennials. So I planted these years ago and they just come back year after year after year after year. Let's see, what was this behind me? This is marjoram right here. There was some curl leaf parsley there, it's pretty much gone. And dill right here, nothing but a stick left now. The swallowtail caterpillars just destroyed my dill. I got quite a bit off of it before they did, but they moved in and just cleaned these things. I mean, just cleaned them out. So I got to plant more dill next year, like 3 times as much. Give some to the caterpillars and save some for me. They started to work on my parsley, but they didn't clean that out. And there's just regular flat leaf parsley up there. And anyway, all this stuff's done great. Again, I don't really water it at all. I mean, it does have the downspout of the house coming out right there, but it hadn't been raining. So this stuff hadn't gotten any real extra water, and all of it's just done fantastic. It's just sheet mulch just like the back, and I didn't do anything to it. I put the stuff in the ground and walked away from it, and it all grew. So it's doing great. We're getting lots of herbs out of the garden and using them in recipes. Here's a good trick about basil. This is August 21st. You can see this stuff's just starting to flower. And it's not that I found a way to keep it from flowering early, but there is something you can do with basil when it starts to get to this point, like it's gonna flower. Snip off a big section of it, strip off the bottom leaves, stick it in a glass of water in a sunny location or lots of light, and give it about a week or 2, and it will root out in that glass of water, stick it in the dirt, and grow another basil plant. This is like my 3rd run of basil this season. Because I've been doing that, so I don't have to worry about it. When this stuff goes ready to go to flower like that, I take a piece off, a couple of pieces, whatever, go stick them in some water to start them out, make pesto out of the rest of it, and you're done with basil for a couple of weeks until you stick that in the ground. And you can just have endless supplies of basil that way. Well, until the frost anyway. And last but not least, I can't take credit for any of this stuff. This is my wife's work. All this fountain grass she planted up front for ornamentals. These are like sweet potato vine or something like that. Boston fern up there, another one over here. And some plants all along here that she's just done a fantastic job with. The key is she comes out and waters these things at least once a week, sometimes twice a week. And she waters all this stuff. And it's doing great, go figure. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this style of video. Just wanted to give you a tour of the whole place, show you everything I got going. I will try to do a better job of getting some more instruction up there, something actually helpful that you can put into play in the near future. I will say, if you guys are wondering what this is I'm wearing around my neck, I got the dog out here running with me. This is his remote collar. Has a vibrate function on the side there, so if I need to get his attention, he starts to go across the street or something like that, I can just push that button and holler at him, and he comes right back. It just vibrates on his neck. So don't think it's like a pacemaker or anything. Kind of weird. Anyway, thank you guys for watching this video. I appreciate it. Leave me a comment below. Let me know how your garden has done. If there are specific topics you want to see covered in future videos, let me know that as well. And as always, God bless.